DCS Messerschmitt 109 K4 Startup Training. I'm Top Gun with the AKA War Dog Squadron. I'll be working today off of checklist version 1.3. And as always with all of the other World War II videos that I've done up to this point, I'm going to do it a little bit out of sequence in the respective. I'm going to go ahead and close the canopy first. Let's do that. And reason being is that you want to try and be able to stick your head out either side of the window to help out with taxiing as you get to your assigned runway. But I'm going to go ahead and close it just so I don't have to deal with engine noise. But first off, let's get this gun sight out of the way. You can keybind it or click on it directly, but it'll just fold down and get out of the way. And your point of view will also shift a little bit as well to help you get down the center line. So let's go ahead and get power to the aircraft and get all of the circuit breakers pushed in. There's a couple that are pushed in by default, but every single one should be pushed in. Let's go ahead and turn on our oxygen. Just click and hold until it stops turning. If it's dusk or nighttime, you can turn on the interior lamps, which are these two knobs for the left and right. Rotate the radiator flap control to automatic, so off to the right side. Set engine governor to automatic. This one's easy to miss. It blends in with the controls around it. Let's zoom in on here. It's this switch right here. It needs to be pulled into the aft position for automatic. This one's easy to forget just because it's so small and it blends in with everything. And your engine will start fine without it, but I guarantee you will end up with problems about 30 seconds after you take off. Chances are your engine will run rough or it'll just quit altogether, probably in less than a minute after you go wheels up. So that's a critical step, and it's one that's easy to forget. Fuel cock lever forward to P1, P2. That's the yellow handle here. Magneto lever up to M1 plus M2. Set the MW fuel control as needed. And there's two switches in regards to the MW50. We'll get to the second one here in just a minute, but the first one I'm referring to is this one right here. And this is one that you're never going to touch in flight. This is something that's set up by default through the mission editor. You might hit it once depending on your situation at the start of the mission before you start the aircraft, and you will never touch it again during the flight. Reason being is there's a tank behind your seat and it either contains MW50 mixture, which I forget what exactly it is, a mixture of like alcohol and water, or you can have aviation fuel in there. And so this tank can serve dual purposes. You can either basically use it as an extra fuel tank, or you can use it as boost fuel, one of the two. By default, the default behavior is boost fuel, so it's actually powering the MW50 boost system. And this little lever here is kind of in the up position by default for the MW50. If you want extra fuel instead and you don't need the boost, you'll have to go into the mission editor, actually change the loadout of the aircraft. It's one of the sub menus. And you just have to remember when you get into the aircraft and start it up that this needs to be transitioned into the down position in order to utilize the fuel, because the position this control is in dictates where the fluid gets pumped into. It goes to different parts of the engine potentially, depending on which operation you're trying to use it for. So this is one to definitely remember. I generally don't use the extra fuel, so I just use it for the MW50, which is the default behavior. So I generally don't ever touch this. But if you do happen to ever want to use it for fuel instead, you'll need to hit that control. The second part of the MW50 is just turning the system on, which is this switch right here to the right. And lift the start switch cover. and set your radio to ATC. Like all of the other World War II aircraft, you cannot manually dial in a specific frequency. You've only got a couple of presets. I'm currently set to preset number 2, and those frequencies can be set in the mission editor. So if you're doing your own mission, you'll have to set those, or if someone else is, they'll probably put in the briefing what channels are for what. So my channel 2 is for ATC. So let's go ahead and contact ATC. So do your default radio key binding, and then F5 for ATC, and F1 for your airbase, and then F3 for startup.
Kudasi, Springfield 1-1, request startup. Springfield 1-1, Kutaisi, cleared for startup.
All right, let's go ahead and prime the engine. And about 10 pumps. And those of you who had the BF 109 when it first came out, as you were pumping that fuel pump, you'd see pressure start building on this gauge here. That doesn't do that behavior anymore. It does not move that gauge, and it shouldn't. So you just have to keep track of how many pumps you've given this handle. Let's go ahead and contact the ground crew to get the inertial starter going. So back to the parent menu, and then ground crew and F4 to run it.
Run the starter. Copy.
And you will need to, the next step will be clicking on the starter handle. You need to click and hold it, and it may be a good several seconds before it finally kicks in. Just have to be patient, and it looks like it's going to stop, but it usually will finally kick over after a little bit.
Clear.
Also, you may want to go ahead and engage your toe brakes too. Keep holding, holding, holding. And there we go. You can go ahead and put the starter cover back down, and just to prepare, you can go ahead and pull the cover away from the landing gear buttons. But really, that's about it. I mean, at this point, you can go ahead and contact ATC for taxi clearance. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Hope this has been helpful. Thank you.